Hello everyone, and welcome to Reykjavík, the capital of Iceland. So, I'm here at what, to judge by the colors, might be one of the gayest streets in the world. Certainly, probably the gayest street in the city. And I decided to pick filming here just because it sort of forms an interesting... The church back there sort of forms an interesting backdrop to the street because obviously the street is meant to invoke a particular sexuality, and that church back there, which is one of the most recognizable landmarks of the city, I don't know that it's specifically supposed to invoke a particular sexuality, but I think that when you look at it from here, it does so, even if unintentionally. And that will kind of be a recurring theme, or has been a recurring theme for me in this city, I think. So, Iceland is a country of about 300,000 people. Not the city, I'm not talking about the city, I'm talking about the whole country now. The whole country of Iceland has between 300 and 400,000 people. And actually the vast majority, like the vast majority of them live in the region of this city. If you include, like the larger Reykjavík area, like not just the city center of Reykjavík, but if you include like the larger metropolitan area of it, if you can call it that, like, I don't know if you can call it a metropolitan area, but if you include the larger area of places and communities surrounding Reykjavík, apparently something like 90% of all people in the whole country, 90% of all people in the whole country live in this area. So this is not a highly settled land. It is considered a part of Northern Europe, although it is about halfway between, it's roughly halfway between mainland continental Europe and North America. And as such, it is a common stop-off point for people flying between the two, like people flying between Europe and North America will often stop over here. And many of the airlines that serve U.S. East Coast airports like Newark International, JFK International, Baltimore, Washington Dulles Airport, many of the airlines serving those airports are Icelandic Airlines, which actually fly from there to Europe. Even if they don't make stops here. A lot of them make non-stop flights between North America and Europe, but they're still Icelandic Airlines, even if they don't stop here in Iceland. But this place is a very well, it's very sort of influenced by both places. It is mostly European, like it is mostly Northern European. The language spoken here is a North Germanic language, and as such in the same family as Scandinavian languages like Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish. But English is very widely used here because there is very strong influence from America, from the USA. And so it kind of forms a little microcosm of larger Europe, which is also a place that has its own culture and had its own culture for thousands of years before the development of what is now the United States of America, but has in modern times become relatively overshadowed by the United States of America. So yeah, that's kind of the story of Europe. And as I say, Iceland is kind of a microcosm of that. So Reykjavik is, at the risk of stating the obvious, it's a small city. It's a small city, kind of a peaceful city. I say kind of because, I mean, peaceful in the sense that it doesn't have a lot of traffic, not a lot of people, but, you know, still, you have something like 100,000, 200,000 people clustered here together, which is not a tiny city. It's not a huge world metropole, but it's not that small either. And, you know, if you have this many people placed close together, you will still have some amount of traffic jams, you'll still have some amount of bustle happening in the city center. But yeah, I am going to walk across Reykjavik, and I'm actually kind of going in the wrong direction because where I started from back there is kind of on the east side of the city, and I'm going farther east because I want to film this church. But after I've done that, I'm going to double back and go back and walk west through pretty much the whole city. This place called Ice Mart is, as you can see, an Icelandic store where you can buy Icelandic stuff, Icelandic souvenirs. And yeah, this place is very well represented by international residents, even though Iceland as a country is not that heavily settled. Reykjavik has its fair share of Asian restaurants and other types of stores and restaurants selling various and sundry things from around the world, although it does seem to be, in terms of international influence, besides American, European stuff, it does seem to be mostly Asiatic stuff, like mostly East Asian stuff, Chinese, Japanese. I don't know why that is. There's not a lot of African or South American influence going on here. It's mostly East Asian when it's not European. But yeah, so this is the big church, which forms kind of a landmark. I mean, again, it is probably, I would argue it's probably the single most recognizable landmark of Reykjavik. And when you get close to it, it looks less phallic. From a distance, it looks rather phallic. From here, it looks more like actually looks to me like kind of like an array of church organ pipes, which might be intentional. There is actually a fairly extensive organ setup inside there. I'm not going to go inside and film there, but there is actually a fairly sizable church organ inside there, and I did actually have the privilege of experiencing a performance thereof. I don't know what's up with these guys. I just find this kind of funny. You've got this knight in a suit of armor, and then you've got just a regular guy standing without any apparent clothing, and they're both just kind of standing here staring at each other like, what are you looking at? I just find that hilarious. I just find it so passive-aggressive. Same thing on the other side too. Like over here, there's actually a couple of instances of the same thing. Just guys just staring at each other like, what are you doing here? What are you looking at? Talking to me? And yeah, there's some history here. So that back there is a hotel for Leifur Eriksson, who I believe is just called Leif Eriksson in English. A little bit of life advice there about how to realize your dreams. And then here, this monument to Mr. Eriksson is apparently from the United States. Again, American influence from the United States to the people of Iceland on the 1000th anniversary of the Althing. The Althing being the Icelandic Parliament. The building thereof is west of here in the more central city center. And I would film it. I actually had the intention of filming it until I saw it. And when I saw it, I thought, wait, that's the Parliament building? It's just a little bit, well, I don't mean to be rude, but it's just a little bit unimpressive. It's so unassuming. It's a very, very unassuming Parliament building. It's one of the most unassuming Parliament buildings that I think I've ever seen. But again, we must remain cognizant of the reality that Reykjavík is a small city, and everything here is built a little bit smaller. It's kind of like, I keep comparing it in my mind to Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia, because that's a similarly small city and country. Ljubljana has about 2 million people, which makes it something like 6 times the size of Iceland in terms of population. But still, pretty small country by world standards, and Ljubljana, the capital, is also a pretty small city by most, compared to most capital cities. And speaking of capital cities, this is the northernmost capital city in the world. And as such, it never gets super hot here. I think the very highest temperature ever measured in Iceland was 25 degrees Celsius, which is, what's that in Fahrenheit? Let's say something like 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is certainly warm. I mean, slightly above my personal ideal temperature, but, not very high in terms of a absolute national all-time maximum. So what I'm doing now is I'm skirting the east side of the city center. The city center is to my left, and I could go there, but we've already kind of seen it. Like, I already kind of showed part of it from where I started, and I want to just take a moment to appreciate the view from the street north of here, because there is a very nice view that you can get if you walk to the water. One thing about Iceland is it has, I think, among the best coastal views of any Nordic country. I've been to Finland, I've been to Sweden, I've been to Norway, I've been to Denmark. All lovely countries in their own ways, but they tend to build their larger cities in sort of harbor-like places, like, kind of, I guess they're fjords. I don't know if they're properly called fjords, but they're places where there's a small sort of water inlet, which is apropos for building a harbor around. And so, like, all the large Norwegian cities, Oslo, Bergen, Stavanger, they're all kind of built around those structures where there's like a water inlet that's sort of cut out of the land. And as a result, you don't get much of a view of the water. I mean, what view of the water you do get is just a view of a harbor with a bunch of boats on it, which is nice. I mean, it's not bad, but it really does not compare to the view of the water that you'll get from here when I reach the water. So how does it compare? How does being here compare to other Nordic countries? Honestly, it doesn't feel that different. I thought that it might be a bit different here because, it's just so isolated. I mean, Iceland is so isolated. It is an island. It's about something like 2 hours flight away from the rest of Europe. It's around 3 hours flight from Central Europe. I guess something like 2 hours flight away if you're flying from, somewhere like Ireland or Norway, or which is already getting closer to here. But it's so isolated. It's not got much of a history. I mean, it has a long history, but even though that history is quite long, it's not that extensive, so to speak. Like, it's not a very. This may sound very ignorant of me. Maybe this sounds either ignorant or belittling or condescending or all of the above. But in my opinion, it doesn't really have much of a history. I mean, Iceland has a very simple history. doesn't seem like a very rich history to me, and I admit I haven't studied it in great and thorough detail, but even though this place has well over 1,000 years of history of settlement from Nordic people, people who came here from Norway and places like that, it seems to me a rather simple history when you compare it to the histories of other countries like, I don't know, England, France, or Germany, for example, or Spain or Italy, or even Poland. I don't know. It's probably very foolish of me to see things in those terms. I mean, you should not come to a city like this and compare it to Paris or London. I mean, it would be stupid to say, well, the art scene here is not as rich as Paris, so why would you want to come here? That would be a stupid thing to say. I mean, you have to take the city on its own terms. You can't expect every place to be Paris or London. That's just unrealistic and unreasonable and silly. But the question for me, like the question that was kind of in my mind when I was making this video and talking to you folks about Iceland and Reykjavík is, would I recommend this place? And I'm not sure that I do. I'm not sure that I would. Because as lovely as it is, it's kind of far away. It's not easy to get here. I mean, you pretty much have to fly. There are ships. I mean, you could take a ship here from Europe or I guess from North America, but I think it takes like a week. Like literally it would take about a week to sail here on a ship. You could do that. I think some people do that if they either are very afraid of flying, like so afraid of flying that they will refuse to fly, or if they just are romantic and appreciate the romance of an ocean voyage like that. But unless you want to take a week to sail here, then yeah, your only option is to fly. I mean, obviously there are no roads that lead here from other countries, and like I said, it's about a 3-hour flight from Central Europe, a little bit longer than that from Canada or the US, I guess, but besides the time, it's not just the time, it's the expense. So flying here is quite expensive, and being here is inordinately expensive. Hotels here are obscenely expensive, and food here is exorbitantly expensive. I bought a sandwich. I stopped, when I was walking along the water here, I stopped by a little restaurant, bought a sandwich. Basic, very basic little sandwich. Like it was literally just like a tomato and mozzarella sandwich. Very simple sandwich. Guess what it cost? About €20. €20 for a sandwich, for a very simple sandwich. Like, I mean, not a bad sandwich, but just a very basic, simple sandwich. Like nothing that I would expect to pay more than about €5 for. So, yeah. And, okay, it was probably a place for tourists. I realized that. Okay, yeah, it's a touristy place. Reykjavík and Iceland in general is more expensive than other places. Okay, fine, I understand that. But I mean, still, that is, in my opinion, obscene. Like, I would not restrain myself from using the word obscene to describe paying €20 for a basic sandwich at a basic place, like at a basic restaurant. So, and it's something that if you're able to travel, then it's probably something you can afford. I mean, I'm not going to go broke spending $20 on a sandwich. It's not something that, it's not like I can't afford it. I mean, I'm not quite that poor. I can afford $20 for a sandwich, but is it reasonable? Is it worth it? Is it worth coming all the way out here? And, I mean, this view is lovely. I mean, look at this view here. It's, get a nice view of the mountains back there. You kind of see, looks really nice there. The way the sun is shining on those mountains back there looks really nice. Oh, it looks lovely. It really does. I mean, you know, you get a nice view here. There's I guess a Viking ship or something there. But is it worth it? Is it worth coming all the way out here just to, you know, just to get that view? I don't think it is, honestly. I mean, I didn't make videos of the other Nordic places. Well, I made a video of Helsinki, but other than that, I didn't make videos of Sweden, Denmark, or Norway because I didn't have a lot to say about them. They weren't very surprising to me, quite frankly. Like there wasn't really anything there that really shocked me. Like sometimes, you know, you go to a place and you say, wow, this place really isn't like what I was expecting at all. It really just is totally different from what I expected. But I didn't have that experience with the Nordic countries. The Nordic countries are all kind of like, yeah, this is pretty much what I expected. Not bad. You know, nice, some nice scenery. Very in touch with nature. Very friendly people. Low crime. Everything extremely expensive. And, you know, as a traveler, when you're planning your travels, if you're going on vacation somewhere, if you are a human being who lives on planet Earth, both your time and your money are finite, and you must ask yourself the question, is it worth the amount of time and money that I would spend to go to this place? And I just don't know that it is. I just don't know that it would be for most people. I mean, I'm here on vacation because this is like the last place I could think of that I haven't already visited. I've been to pretty much every European country. I haven't made videos of all of them, but I've made videos of all the countries that I wanted to make videos of. I find this very amusing. The Icelandic language is, as I understand it, the most difficult Germanic language. And I just find it amusing that apparently Icelandic for car wash is Snertileos Tvotastud. It takes longer to pronounce the name of the place than it does to wash your car. No, yeah, I mean, I've said before, I think I've said a couple of times actually on previous videos, this will be the last video I make like this because I have nowhere left to travel to. And I keep going back on that promise and making more videos, but it's been a long time. Like, it's been a long time since I posted my last travel video, I think. Hasn't it? It's been like, when was the last travel video? More than a year ago, I think. And yeah, now, like I said, I'm here just because this was the last place I could think of that I haven't been to yet, where I haven't already traveled around. I can't think of any other European country that I will likely ever go to, ever, that I haven't already been to now. So I mean, the only European countries that I haven't been to by now are places like Andorra, which is so isolated that it wasn't worth it for me. Like, I actually took a bus from Spain to France, and I thought, do I want to go to Andorra? And I thought, no, you know what, it's just so far out of the way. I'm not going to bother. I also haven't been to Belarus, but yeah, no, I don't really want to go to Belarus, to be honest. No thanks. Not even because I have anything specifically against Belarus, but I mean, first of all, you need a visa. I don't really feel like going through the trouble of getting a visa to go to Belarus. I mean, it's worth it to get a visa to go to Russia because Russia has so much in it. But, you know, to go through the whole process of getting a visa to go to Belarus somehow just doesn't seem worth it to me. And also considering the fact that like 1/5 of Belarus is still irradiated from Chernobyl, also kind of deters me somewhat. I mean, yeah, I could go to Minsk. I mean, the capital city of Minsk is not irradiated. You can go there and see that, but I don't know, somehow it just doesn't seem worth it to me. But yeah, I say again, even though I know I've said it before, this will probably be the last travel video, at least for a while. I'm not saying ever, I'm not saying for the rest of all eternity, but this will probably be the last travel video that I make for a long while, because I just don't have a lot of places left that I plan to go to or want to go to. So yeah, would I recommend Iceland? Not unless you're a completionist like I am. Not unless you really want to put down the kind of money. I mean, I'm not a wealthy person, but I put down the money to come here because I thought I might as well. I mean, where else am I going to go at this point? If I'm taking a vacation, I have nowhere left to take a vacation. Or if you really like the kind of nature that you have here. So you can see it's fairly cloudy. The sun here is not that common at any time of the year. I mean, you get sunny days, of course, but it's not very common. Like, most days are kind of gray and cloudy and kind of cold like this. I mean, what's the temperature today? I think it's about between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius, which is like, let's say that's something like 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is not super cold, but folks, it's July. It's that kind of temperature in mid-July. So yeah, it doesn't get really warm here ever. I mean, the flip side is winter doesn't get super cold either, because the water has such a moderating influence on the temperature. Even in winter, like even in the dead of winter, it will go somewhat below freezing, but it doesn't get super below freezing. You don't get like the minus 20 degree temperatures that you would experience in, for example, in Russia. Well, okay, in Russia I experienced almost minus 30 Celsius. And of course it gets even colder than that in like northern Siberia, where I didn't go, but have certainly heard about. So it doesn't get super cold here, and it doesn't get very warm here, which is not bad. But I mean, if you're a vacationer looking to travel somewhere, don't expect bright and sunny and warm weather here. That doesn't really happen. What happens here is you get very dramatic nature. You have really lovely nature. I mean, you've got, this is a very mountainous country, especially if you go traveling through the center. Like, I mean, Reykjavík is, it's a relatively settled, established city. It has arts and culture and stuff like that. But if you go anywhere outside of Reykjavík, the rest of Iceland is so provincial. It's so... And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I'm not trying to insult it or I'm not trying to be condescending. It has been left in a very natural state. Like, even coming here from the airport. So there's no proper airport in Reykjavík. Or actually there is. There is an airport in Reykjavík, and it's so close you could walk there. Like, I could walk to the airport from here. It's only like a mile, maybe 1 or 2 kilometers. But that's a domestic airport. It serves only domestic flights. The international airport, which is where you will land unless you live in Iceland, is in Keflavik, which is about 40 kilometers west of here. And there's no way to get from between here and that airport except, on the road. Like, there's no train connection. There are buses that run, so you'd have to take a bus or a taxi, unless you rent a car. You could rent a car as well and drive your own car. I guess you could do that as well. But yeah, there's no way to travel that distance except by road. And on that road journey between here and the airport, the international airport that serves here, oh my goodness, it looks so barren. It looks so desolate. You really see why Iceland often stands in for alien planets in science fiction movies. This country is a popular spot for filming extraterrestrial landscapes, because when you get out there on the Icelandic plain away from the cities, it looks so barren. It looks so... I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, it really does look alien. It really does look like an alien landscape from another planet. It's a little depressing, a little disturbing, a little can be a little bit upsetting if you're not ready for it, if you're not prepared for it. But it's also exciting in its own way. So yeah. Oh, hey. There is an airplane flying into that airport that I just mentioned. Again, the domestic airport that serves only other Icelandic destinations. Which you can see, judging by the trajectory of that plane, is obviously not very far away at all. I mean, like I said, it's about a mile from here. I could walk there in 10 or 15 minutes. But you have this building, and oh, it's nice. It looks like a newlywed couple are beholding that abstract art sculpture there. Abstract art is very common in these Nordic countries because they don't have a strong tradition of classic art, and so art that they have tends to be very modern and thus very abstract. Also behind them is that is a Coast Guard ship of the Icelandic Coast Guard. I actually don't know. For some reason I thought, maybe I'm wrong, I thought that Iceland has no military. I thought it's one of the few countries in the world that has no military, and its actual military defense is provided by some other Nordic country, maybe Norway or Denmark or whatever. But at least they apparently have a Coast Guard, which, as far as I know, counts as military, even though it's domestic. It's domestic defense. It's not used for international operations. It's only to defend the coast. But that still is, as far as I know, is considered a branch of the military. Anyway, so yeah, I've done the whole round. I've walked along the water, and I'm coming back now to the city center. So I'll close off by taking a little look at the city center, such as it is. But yeah, this is, like I said, this is the only place in Iceland. Here comes another plane. I'm actually not sure where these planes are coming from because, like I was just saying, you know, Reykjavík is the only really settled place in Iceland. There are other little towns, and many of them do have airports, but I don't know, I don't feel like I wouldn't guess that there's that much travel between them. I mean, some of these planes are probably coming from Keflavik, from the international airport. They're probably flights carrying passengers who couldn't be bothered to. People here are very friendly. Hi.
Hi.
People here are super friendly. I mean, that's the thing, because it's kind of a smaller town. It's people here are not as cynical. They're a little more friendly and open to visitors, even though there are a lot of visitors here. Reykjavik is actually very touristy. Like, there are actually a lot of places here that cater to tourists. But people here are very, very nice. I've found people here to be extremely friendly. So, you know, that's one thing going for this place. I mean, there's a lot going for this place. Iceland has a lot to recommend it, but I wouldn't recommend coming here unless you really want to go to that countryside, because it has a very unique sort of countryside, the likes of which you really can't find anywhere else in the world. So if you want to go hiking or mountain climbing in a place like that, this place is recommendable. But otherwise, oh yeah, while I'm here, let me just take a moment to feature this. This is something that you actually don't see. Some tourist guides don't mention this place at all, which I find kind of funny. This is one of the most famous museums of Iceland. It is the Icelandic Phallological Museum. It is, I believe, the world's largest collection of penises. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is actually a... It is a collection of various penises, mostly animal penises. I mean, they have everything from big to small. They have whale penises there, and then they have, you know, mouse penises, hamster penises, things like that, all meticulously preserved in little formaldehyde jars. It's kind of strange. I mean, it's not bad. It's amusing, but it's kind of odd. And they do it. I think they do it pretty well because they sort of strike that balance between educational and satirical. Like, they do it fairly seriously. They actually. I mean, the guy who founded the museum actually worked as a teacher. He actually worked as a school teacher for a long time. So he is an educator. And he just hit upon the idea, hey, let's make a museum about penises. Let's educate people about penises. Why not? So it's very educational. Like, it talks all about the different sexual characteristics of different animals, like things like their mating behaviors and the structure and anatomy and functionality of the different penises. So in a sense, it's all done very straight. It's all done very educationally. But they are, of course, aware of the humor possible in their subject matter, and so they have a good amount of jokes and silliness there as well. So it's a nice little park there. It's actually we're not far from the Althing. Remember I mentioned the Althing, the Parliament building, and I don't know if you'll. Let me try to zoom in on it from here. I don't know if the sign will be very illegible from here, but this building right here, this is, let's see, is the sign readable from here? I can't see it very well on my camera's viewfinder. I don't know if you'll be able to read that, but this is the Prime Minister's office. It says the same thing. You can see there are two signs. The one on the left is in Icelandic, I think. The one on the right is in English, or should have been. Yeah, and it's just, I guess, where the Prime Minister of Iceland works, and there's like no security in front or anything like that. It's just a straight building, and it's just like, hey, Prime Minister's office, cool. Which kind of speaks again, I think, to the low crime nature of this place. It's just, you know, people don't worry about, you know, if you go to if you think about the security that's associated with the British Prime Minister's office in London, compare it to what you just saw there. I mean, there's a palpable difference. But yeah, so yeah, it's Iceland. I mean, what you see is what you get. Like I said, the nature here is lovely. People are lovely. People are super friendly, super nice. Pretty much everybody speaks English. You know, crime is hardly a thing. So if all that sounds good, you know, they're also very LGBT friendly here, as you can imagine from that Rainbow Street where I started. So, you know, there's a lot of qualities that I think would draw people to a place like this. But again, in terms of the expense, just in terms of how inordinately expensive it is to come here and tour around here, I just would hesitate to recommend this place unless you're so wealthy, unless you're so very wealthy that the cost is not a deterrent. In which case, have at it, because Iceland is a very wealthy country, which means obviously that it's expensive. And, you know, it is expensive to live here because most food has to be imported. I mean, being the Icelandic landscape does not lend itself well to agriculture. It is not well suited to agriculture, so most food has to be imported. Most of everything has to be imported. I don't even know what Iceland's industries are. I mean, other than fish, other than obviously, you know, a strong fishing industry, I don't even know what might be well-established, well-known industries here in Iceland. So I don't know what people do for a living, to be honest, other than, I mean, obviously there's the tourist industry, because tourism is significant here, significant enough that it has a significant presence here, and there are a fair number of people working in tourism. But other than that, what do people do here? I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of high-tech industry here. I don't think there are a lot of software companies or things like that operating here. Don't think there are a lot of media companies or whatever else. I don't know. It's a very unique country with a very unique economy, and that is something to consider if you're going to come here, even just for a short trip. But if you like what you've seen, and again, if you're curious about what I haven't shown, like I haven't shown you the nature outside of the city. I mean, this is the capital city, and it's a relatively normal Nordic city. It's not that much different from Bergen or from I don't know, Malmö or Aalborg or places like that. You know, it's not super different from places like that. But if you're really curious about the Icelandic landscape, which is marvelous, I'm saying that not firsthand. I haven't seen it myself, but, you know, just from things, you know, from pictures that I've seen, it certainly looks wonderful. If that appeals to you at all, then sure, come on down here. Like I said, if you have the kind of money, if price is not a deterrent, if you're wealthy enough that you can afford to come here and tour around and see all the things that Iceland has to offer, then sure, come to Iceland. It's a great country. But if you're not already well traveled, if you haven't already seen the other northern European countries like Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, I just don't think that I would recommend this place over them. I would say go there first. And then if you really want to see more, if you're really curious about Iceland and really want to go there, then sure, go there. But I wouldn't recommend this as a first stop. I would say, yeah, go to Norway first, go to Sweden first. And if you're in Norway, don't just go to Oslo. I recommend Bergen. The problem with Bergen is it's also kind of out of the way. Bergen is on the west coast, and it's quite isolated. It's difficult to get to Bergen, again, unless you fly, because it's kind of in the mountains on the western coast of Norway. But it's like a swan just sitting there on that little island in the middle of this pond, or I guess it's a lake. Is this a lake or a pond? I guess it's big enough that you could kind of say it's a lake, kind of. Bergen's nice. Oslo is okay, but I was a little bit, I don't know, for some reason I expected a little bit more from Oslo. Although you shouldn't expect too much from Bergen either. And Bergen it's not a big city, but Bergen's a little bit more, I don't know, somehow seems a bit more picturesque, a little bit more peaceful to me. And then in Sweden, obviously Stockholm. Stockholm's a nice city. And yeah, Copenhagen, I don't know. Copenhagen is also for me just a little bit, I don't know, what can I say? Copenhagen for me is just, again, I was just a little bit underwhelmed by it, but not bad. Copenhagen's okay. It's just, again, I don't know that I'd really make the effort to go there. Even Christiania. Oh boy, for Friedrichshafen Christiania, I was really enthusiastic about that place. It's like a little enclave inside Copenhagen, which is supposedly free of all laws, like a little anarchist place where you can exist without laws, allegedly. And I was curious to see what they've done with it. But really, it seems like they've mostly just used it as a place to to take drugs, like to use drugs. So it's just like a pot haven. It's just like a enclave where you can smoke pot on the street without getting into trouble for it, and sell it and whatever. And if that's really important to you, then I guess you can go there. But actually, marijuana is in the process of being decriminalized in many places, so you'll probably be able to get it legally soon wherever you are, if you're in any Western country. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't very impressed by it, honestly. But maybe I'm just too arrogant, too entitled, too expectant. I don't know. What can I say? Yeah, I mean, Denmark is nice, but again, if you're like an American traveler going to Europe, going to Northern Europe, I would rather recommend Sweden or Norway over Denmark, but that's just my opinion. And yeah, Iceland, like I said, if you have been to those places already and just can't get enough of Northern Europe, then yeah, maybe Iceland is a candidate for the next destination on your travel itinerary. Nice place, but again, what you see is what you get. I think no really big surprises here, like nothing really super shocking here, or nothing like again, this is the kind of place where you go and you think, yeah, it's kind of what I expected, kind of what I was expecting to see, which is not bad. Not every place has to knock you out of your socks and make you say, wow, that was so totally unexpected, I was not expecting that. So yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and enjoy this peaceful scene by the actually, hold on, I changed my mind. I'm not gonna sit here. I'm gonna show you the other side of it as well, because there's another, like, this is kind of half of this lake, and then if you cross the street here, there's another half of it. I'll just show you the other half really quick, just to see it, even though it's pretty much the same as this half, just so that we can say that we've seen it. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all that I had to say about Reykjavík and about Iceland. I'm happy I came here. Misunderstand me. I don't mean to give the impression that I dislike this place. I certainly don't regret that I came here. It's nothing like that. Just keep your expectations in check. Don't expect too much of a place like this, and you might find that it's a very lovely little place to spend part of your vacation. And yeah, I guess that's it for me. Like I said, this will probably be the last video that I make of this kind for a fairly long time. Unless something really unexpected happens and I end up finding myself in a place where I really didn't expect to be. I mean, which could happen. Not impossible. But at least for the foreseeable future, I think this will be the last video. Wow. I hate that. I really hate it when people have such loud motorcycles. I'm not opposed to motorcyclists, but if you're going to have a motorcycle, why make it so loud? I mean, that motorcycle was across the water. That was like way over there on like that street that's over there, and it was still so loud that it disturbed me from here. It really upsets me when people do that. But yeah, as I was saying, this will probably be my last video on this channel for a goodly while. But despite that, I hope that you've enjoyed coming with me on my walk through Reykjavík. Hope that you enjoyed what you have seen. Thanks for coming along, everybody, and wish you all well. Take care, and perhaps I will talk to you again later, or perhaps not, who knows. But in either case, be well and take care.